Good morning, everybody. And surprise, I am not Debbie. I hope you guys are doing great this morning. Debbie and Ray are actually out in Texas today. It's the Epic Realty holiday party, so they're out there having a great time. So I'm going to take over for Debbie and host the call today. Hope everybody's doing well. I see some regulars on here, so you guys know the drill. We'll let everybody get kind of piled in, let all the participants dive in, and then we'll kick this party off. So just bear with us for a couple minutes as we get everybody started. Hope everybody's having a great week so far. You guys doing anything fun and exciting? For those who are already on the call, drop something in the chat. How's your week been so far? Where in Texas did they go? They're in the Houston area. I don't remember specifically what location they're in, but they're in the Houston market for the holiday party. Pietro, how's the weather up in North Jersey? Like, is it feeling like winter up there already? You guys, like, has it set in? Florida's been so temperamental, it's hard to gauge this year. I see some faces like, yes, it's cold. Oh, nice. 4 hours from me. So just shoot her a note and drive out and say hi. You're close enough. You guys can make that work. I actually, getting back to the weather, I actually thought there was just the sliver of thought crossed my brain recently that we might actually get some snow in Florida this year because there was about a week where it was freaking cold, and for Florida, obviously, right? Not cold like New York or New Jersey or Nebraska or anything like that. But it was cold for Florida, and it was like waking up in the mornings. It was 28 degrees, and I'm like, please, it's 100% humidity in the summer. 100% humidity and 28 degrees. That means snow. Let's make it happen, Florida. And it did not happen. I was quite disappointed. And now, of course, it's back into like the high 60s, low 70s already. It's like, dadgummit. I kind of miss the snow because I've lived in Missouri, Nebraska, Texas, a bunch of places where when it's winter. And so I kind of miss it. My wife doesn't. She's like, I'll take 70 degrees in the winter. That's fine. But I kind of like it. So all of you that have an actual winter and you have to wear something heavier than a Hawaiian shirt, I kind of envy you.
You only envy them until you're not having to scrape the slush and ice and off your windshield.
That's fair. That's a fair point. So I actually when I lived in Nebraska, I got a snowblower. Like it was worth it to just push a few strips up and down the driveway, clear the whole thing. It took 15, 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half. It was worth doing.
Oh my God, I hate the cold. Like I am dreading it to snow. I'm like, please don't.
Yeah.
No, I hate it.
It's perfect when it snows, like it's Christmas Eve or the holiday Eve, and then you look outside the window and it's like snowing and it's so beautiful, and then it melts like the next day.
That is
That's
a perfect
100% fair.
scenario.
I'm good with that.
Perfect scenario.
Perfect. Or maybe melts in the by the afternoon, and that's like,
Yeah.
okay, great. That was nice. Thank you.
That is 100% accurate. So the first
Yes. Yeah.
snowfall is
Yeah.
beautiful. 24 hours later, it's yucky, mucky slush, and you're like, I'm done. I'm over it. We're
But
finished
I
now.
tell you, Walter, it's like I used to laugh because coming from Canada, we moved to Florida. And then so that was like hilarious because I would be like, why do they have snow hats and like gloves and stuff at the Kmart? I don't get it. What's going on? And then we moved to Virginia, and literally like the first week we're there, the snow came down in Virginia. It was like maybe half an inch, if not less.
Wow.
And literally the whole government like shut down. Like the schools were closed, the Walmart was like there was no bread, there was no milk. And I'm like, is
Yeah.
it I really literally thought it was a joke. I thought it was like some kind of joke that people were
That's
playing
hilarious.
because I had never seen coming from Canada, like it would be a blizzard and you would still go to school. If the school
Yeah.
bus was like getting through the snow, you were going. It didn't matter.
Yeah. Throw some chains on the tires and let's
It was
roll.
so
Yeah,
funny the
absolutely.
perspective.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's hilarious. So
Well, we are at
anyways,
10:01. We're going to give this just another minute to make sure I get everybody in because obviously once we start talking, it's a little bit more difficult to go back and forth on the chat. So we'll make sure everybody gets in. Actually, Jackie, do you mind if I make you co-host? So
no, I will be happy to help.
if somebody does show up a little bit late and we're already kind of in the process, we don't have to kind of have that weird pause back forth that happens sometimes when
Okay.
you're a great conversation. So that way we can go and kick. So real quick, a couple housekeeping things, and then we'll kick this thing off. So if you are not naked, driving, or driving naked, please turn your camera on. We want to see your face. We don't care if you're eating your breakfast. We don't care if you haven't had your makeup. I have not put my makeup on yet either. It's so much more fun to engage and have a great conversation when we can see each other's faces. So that's point one. Point two, please feel free to drop your contact information in the chat. The goal of this is to build relationships and network with people. So let us know who you are, where you're at, what you do. You never know who's on this call that needs what you do, and they can reach out to you directly after the call and say, hey, we were on the morning coffee together. Let's chat more. At the end of the call, I'll remind everybody to download the chat log. And so you will have everybody's contact information, what they do, where they're at, who they serve, where they serve. And if you see something or you hear of somebody that has what you have or has what you need, or you have what they need, by all means, connect and reach out. That's a great way to leverage this call to grow those relationships. And that's really the whole point at the end of the
I
day.
would challenge everybody on the call, even though I know it's the holidays, but I would really challenge, and I'm going to get Debbie to do this moving forward, is to actually pick one person who you want to connect with this week.
Yeah.
And have an actual conversation with them, either on Zoom or phone call. Just if you could just, if everybody on this call chose one person to connect with on the phone this week, it would be so much better next week, right? And then we'll all get to know each other. And it doesn't have to be a big conversation, like just set aside 15 minutes and get to know them, let them know you. And then we can report back for our next call, like who actually reached out to somebody and had a conversation and how that went.
I think that would be awesome. Yeah, again, the point of this is, right, it's a networking morning virtual call, but we talk and we learn and we grow together, which is great. But the ultimate goal of these calls is to connect you with people that you need in your life and in your sphere and in your business. So don't shy away from that. Connect with people. That's the whole point. All right, we're 10
Walter, before you get started, are we going to do breakout rooms?
We'll see how the conversation goes. We have a really great conversation laid out today.
Okay.
If we have time at the end of that conversation for some breakout rooms, we'll absolutely do those. If we just have a really great conversation and it takes most of our time, we may not. So I'm going to leave that a little bit flexible today. We'll see how it goes. With all that said, let's dive in today. So we actually have two different speakers today, and we're just going to kind of have an open conversation. So again, if you're on the call is for you. Ask questions, drop it in the chat. This is a very interactive piece today. So the framework, the goal of today's call is setting intentions for 2025. Right. It's that time of the year. Everybody starts talking about New Year's resolutions and what are my goals and what do I want to accomplish. So we're gonna have a conversation a little bit differently about that. We're gonna talk about setting intentions for 2025 and how do we make that a reality. So the question that we'll hopefully try to answer on the call today is, what if 2025 could actually be the best year you've ever had? Right? Every year, that's the goal, right? Hey, new me, new year, new me. I want to do something different. And then a few weeks later, some of that fizzles out. Maybe you stick with a routine, maybe you don't. Statistically speaking, the vast majority of people that set a New Year's resolution by March, April timeframe, they've dropped it. Right. And so how do we fix that problem, and how do we turn 2025 into the best year that you've ever had, depending on what you're trying to accomplish? And it really starts with clarity and intention. And so that's going to be kind of the framework of the conversation we have today as we work through how do we set meaningful intentions that actually align with our purpose, our vision, not just for your business, but also for your life. And then the goal here is to leave out all the fluff. We don't want to get super philosophical. Again, these aren't vague resolutions we're trying to set. We're trying to break this down into some actionable steps to ensure that you don't just wish for success, but you can actually go out there and build it for yourself day after day. Now, to help with that, we actually have two different really awesome guests for the call today that we're just going to kind of do kind of an interview style here. So first guest is Andrew Becker. He is the CEO and founder of Billions CRM. And he's also the host of Team Lead Talks podcast. And then our second guest is Dr. Al Philip Neri, who recently got his PhD in performance psychology. So I have to ask, and he's probably going to laugh at me, but Dr. Philip, I'm old enough to put the connection together. I want to call him Dr. Phil, but I'm not going to do that. So he's a great guy. Again, PhD in performance psychology. He lives and breathes this stuff. He's also a real estate entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a public speaker. And with the two of them together, we have a wealth of knowledge to dive into this topic and really go into it. So we're just going to dive straight into it. So I see that Andrew and Al are both on the call. They're ready to rock and roll. So Andrew, I'm just going to dive right into this. I'm going to start with you, and then Al, if you want to just piggyback on that and expound. Let's talk about this idea of having clarity before we take an action, right? Most people dive into an action, right? New Year's resolution, I'm going to the gym. And on January 1st, they roll themselves out of bed, they throw on their shoes, and they head to the gym. And statistically, less than a couple months later, they're no longer going to the gym. It's because they started an action without clarity on what they were actually trying to accomplish. What does this action lead me to? Why am I even doing it? Can you expound on that a little bit and just talk about how we need to have the clarity before we take the action, and what does that all start to look like?
Yeah, thank you for that intro. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick background about where I am. I'm up in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Though I run billions and have a podcast now, I did run and operate a real estate team in this area for the last decade. Not in sales anymore, but I'm going to hopefully bring a lot of my knowledge that I learned from there to help on this call. But yeah, Walt, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really simple. You cannot hit a target if there's not even a target to hit, right? So defining success early and what that means to you and why it means that to you is paramount here. So there is about a little bit under 2 weeks left in December. So if you have not already, now is the time to try to define that for you personally in your personal life and in your business life, what that means to you and what you're trying to do. Me, what I normally do, and we'll get into this, Walt, but just again, kind of like to summarize at a very high level to kick off this conversation is I will look at my past year, all the data and analytics of those goals and see, did I hit it? Did I not? And then I use that tangible data to know and plan going into the next year, which is 2025. A really, really important part too is write this stuff down. If you just have it in your head and you're not writing it down, that makes all the difference in the world. But plan early and be ready to iterate and tweak as you go. Kind of just my 2 cents here, but that's the importance of taking success before the action, or sorry, getting the clarity to get success before the action, Walt, because you're actually going in a direction.
Yeah, I think that's so important too. The aspect of writing it down. There's so many great studies out there that show that it's been studied for decades, right? Having an idea, very few people turn that idea into action. Having an idea and writing it down, a larger percentage will go execute that action. Having an idea, writing it down, and then telling someone else about what that goal was, much higher probability that you're going to take the action. So that writing it down piece is critical. Al, what do you say to that in terms of the clarity versus or clarity before action? What are your thoughts there on how we frame that? Why maybe the question from the psychology perspective is why do so many people take action without having the clarity? And then how do they break that cycle? How do they maybe they pause, they reflect before they dive in headfirst into an action? How do they start actually gaining the clarity on what they're trying to do? What's that look like for them?
I think the reality is that they don't really take action, right? They take a false attempt at trying to create a change. And that's why it doesn't sit. So when you're clear about what you want to achieve, and I just heard this morning, and I want to share it because it was very, very powerful. When you're doing what Andrew just said about reflecting, right? You may go, oh my God, I failed so miserably in that. And so you don't make that an intentional goal for 2025. But what you have to understand is the idea might have been good, your strategy might have been wrong.
Mm.
So you don't always throw everything in the trash can. You relook at it for the next year to say, okay, I want to achieve this, and here's the reason why. I'm clear on it. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to building a plan, when you talk about habits, micro habits, things of that nature, the daily discipline, step number one is you have to be honest with yourself. Self-awareness is the most important thing in regards to goal setting. So going to the gym, as we use that example, well, I'm going to start going to the gym. You know what I see is I see people go absolutely batshit crazy on January 2nd, not the 1st,
Yeah,
2nd,
yeah,
because they're hungover on the 1st. And then they can't return to the gym for another 6 days because they haven't done anything other than lift a Bud Light,
yeah.
right? So they can't even move. So they weren't even self-aware of what their capacity was and how to grow up into that, right? That there's everything that has a curve. So my biggest thing is when you talk about clarity, it starts with self-awareness. And I can go down a deep rabbit hole here, but you've got to be aware of your strengths, your weaknesses, your limitation, your time, your schedule, you're this, you're this, you're this, so you can actually build a realistic action plan for 2025.
Yeah. I love that point that you make there about how people go to the gym and essentially they break themselves, right? And then they don't go back. I love the analogy because like I'm a former marathon runner. I ran a 2 hour and 46-minute marathon, which means statistically I ran faster than 1% of 1% of the US population. I remember to this day when I decided at age 15 I'm going to join the Navy and I'm going to go do these great things and I'm going to do the thing. And I remember the very first run I ever took. And I felt like I couldn't walk for 3 days afterwards because I'd never ran. I was an shy, introverted kid. I hung out in my room. I wasn't in any sort of sports through high school. And I was physically incapable of doing the thing that I thought I wanted to do when I started it. So that's absolutely 100%. I've seen that in my own life. That is 100% true. And from the business perspective, I think take it outside of the physical world. We do that to ourselves a lot of time in the business perspective, right? We have an idea of what we want to do, but we don't have the clarity on how to do it well, how to do it right, how to do it consistently. And so then we start doing it and it kind of sucks for us, right? Because we just don't have the plan in place. And so after we do it for a little bit, we start reinforcing this negative loop in our head that this does not work for me. I'm just not going to try this anymore. As opposed to what you talked about of how we reevaluate and we say, not that this does not work for me, but this is currently not working for me. So let's stop, assess, adjust, refine, and then give it another chance with a different plan of execution. I think that's absolutely valuable, no doubt about it. So let's talk for a minute. Let's go back to that point that you made, Andrew, about auditing 2024, right? Or whatever the last year was, so that you can identify what did work well for me, what didn't work well for me, where did I really flounder around and not really have any sort of focus. And that, if you do that correctly, right, that allows you to move into the next phase, whether that's the next year, the next quarter, with a different strategy. If you're honest with yourself and you assess where you're at, it's much easier to define a plan to where you actually want to go. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? And what does your audit look like when you pause and you reassess the previous year before you make a plan for the next year?
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing in order to do an audit is to track somehow in some shape or some form, right? Because it's incredibly difficult to track in your head all these different goals, ambitions, what you're trying to achieve in a next year if you have no clue where you even landed in the last year. For business, running a sales team, all of our reporting is inside of our CRM, right? And we're able to go back and look at a snapshot of, we wanted to get 1,000 leads this year. Where were we? And we can go back and reference that and then decide if we blew it out of the water, were we a little bit, less ambitious, or if we didn't, do we need to be a little bit more ambitious this year? But that's the key. I mean, you can't know what's working and what's not working without having some sort of a tangible data point, right? Yeah. In my personal life, I'll throw out an example. If I set a goal to go to the gym 150 times out of the year, a little bit over 2-3 times a week, right? I keep a log I have an Apple iPhone and I have notes, and I say like one of my categories is gym, or going on a run, whatever it is. You just kind of have to put yourself in that mindset. If you do truly, this goes to what Al was kind of saying, you do truly want to make a change, you have to relentlessly track and just make that part of your routine.
Yeah. I always tell people, especially for those in the real estate space, but it's the same if you're a lender, it's the same if you're a financial advisor, it's the same. If you have any sort of license or certification, it's really the same. You are the CEO of your company. That's a fact. And a lot of people don't understand. A lot of real estate agents are bad about this. They think, well, I work for eXp Realty. I work for Epic Realty. I work for Coldwell Bank. No, you don't. Right? Those brokerages are your partners. You are the CEO of your company. Now, if you think about this from the perspective of tracking your business, there's not a single successful CEO in history that didn't know their numbers. They didn't know their metrics. They didn't stop and assess where were we last year? What did we accomplish? What went well? What did not go well? Where do we refine so that we can improve next year? Every single successful business owner tracks and analyzes their business and they know their numbers. So as the CEO of your company, whether you're in lending, you're in real estate, you're in financial advising, you're in insurance, that is an absolutely critical component. Is nobody is telling you what to do, telling you how to do it. You're the boss. But
Well,
you're also employee of the month every month, right? You
yeah,
have to be.
well, you didn't want to get philosophical here, but you're not only the CEO of your business, but you're the CEO of your life also, right?
Absolutely.
So treat it the same way. Why would you do it any differently? Know your personal life numbers and know your business numbers. And I think that's very true. I study a lot of CEOs, a lot of companies at scale. The number one thing is they know every dollar goes in, X comes out, every this, every that. They know their numbers because that's how you make informed business decisions.
Absolutely. So Al, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite words. A lot of people think this is a dirty word, but I think it matters so tremendously as you're trying to set really good, achievable actions. Let's talk about accountability for a minute. Whether this is a personal goal, a business goal, you've got a project you're working. I think most people hear the word accountability and they go, that someone's going to put their thumb on me and say, did you hit your numbers? Did you hit your numbers? Did you hit your numbers? And nobody really wants to be in that environment. What are some ways that we can build either personally as we grow our life the way we want to, or from the business perspective as we want to grow our business, close more transactions, make more money, whatever it is? What are some ways that we can build in some accountability mechanisms for ourselves to help us accomplish the plans that we lay out?
Um, yeah, I think accountability it's just got a negative stigma on it,
Mhm.
right? And I think
It's a dirty word. Yeah.
yeah, probably, whatever. It's almost like you're going to get scolded or like grounded or,
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like, and in the adult world, that's not really what it means. And if you reframe accountability to this is keeping me on track, right? I'm not going to get punished, but it also shows me where I need to adjust. And I'm
Mhm.
real big on what I call the power of the pivot. And okay, you don't know if you need to pivot if you don't have a metrics that's telling you need to pivot. You'll just keep going down the same path, expecting results, but you're not getting them. Well, the reality is it's because you just needed to make a quick pivot and then go, and it will take you further. And you might need to pivot again, and it will take you further. So accountability is just a tool. It's a tool. And that's how you have to view it. It's a tool to help you stay on track. It's a tool to help you think outside the box. It's a tool to help you be more strategic. It's a tool to help you be more creative. So if you use it as a tool, now what's the tool? It could be with somebody else, right? You should have, and I don't think they have to be called accountability partners, because who in the world is like jumping for joy for that Zoom, right? Oh my God, I got to meet my accountability partner today. You're like, what? Right? But you can have different people. They also don't have to be in your industry. They do not have to be in your industry to be AKA an accountability partner, right? I actually sometimes get more value out of connecting with people in different industries. We're both entrepreneurs, right? And when you look at entrepreneurship in general, we all have the same verticals, right? Leads, lead conversion, money, taxes, right? Everything's the same. It's just our product is different, our offering is different. But they because of their world, their coaching, their training, their seminars, sometimes they see something a little different to the way we see something. So you can sit there and be like, oh, well, that's an interesting strategy, right? So I will pick on a real estate topic real quick. Farming, right? Every stupid title rep in the world will tell you, oh my God, you got a farmer neighborhood. And you should just give it about 6 months. Well, how do they know? They don't sell houses.
Right.
They've never sold a house
Yeah.
ever. And we all know that farming doesn't work in 6 months if you've ever tried it. Unless maybe you add the Easter egg hunt, the fireworks, the this, 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 right? But you just send a postcard out for 6 months. Good luck. But talk to an insurance agent about farming. They'll tell you 2 years. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Title rep says 6 months, insurance agent says 2 years. So when you look at it, you're learning something from somebody else who their systems are on autopilot for that kind of stuff. And it gives you a different lens to kind of say, okay, well, I didn't really fail at farming. I just haven't done it long enough. So that one is just connection. And then I do think you have to, and this goes back to Andrew's point, year-end audit? No, daily audit.
Yeah.
Daily, right? I like this tool, and I swear I should just quit everything I do and become a salesman for this company. Goal Crazy Planner. I love this thing. It's called Goal Crazy Planner. It is hands down the best planner I've ever used in my life. Ever. Ever. And part of it is being intentional at the end of your day for the next day, which is something I talk a lot about. But it's also at the end of the day, reflecting on your day to be intentional for the next day. My friends, if you just implement that simple step for 2025, let's connect next December. And I promise you, your life is going to be different.
Yeah.
I promise you.
No, I love that. So in my world, I teach people to build their calendar weekly and reflect on their actions daily. Right. It just, and it's not a huge complex undertaking. It's 20 or 30 minutes when you mentally decide my workday is over. And that could be 3 p.m. That could be 7 p.m. It's your business to run, right? But at the moment you say, okay, I'm done for the day, take 20, 30 minutes and just give yourself a mental recap. What did I do today? Like, what did I actually do? Right. Because sometimes we have those days where like, I feel busy, but I didn't do anything. Right. We've all had those days. So what did I actually do? What were the results of my actions? Were those results what I expected? And if not, let me think about what I do tomorrow that'll be differently than today so that I can achieve the results I expect the next time. So I love that concept of refining and reflecting on a daily basis. Obviously, there is a bigger overarching yearly review that you want to do as you assess what your business did and where you want to go next year and how you want to grow it. But I think that the micro adjustments we make when you're refining daily leads to much larger macro results over the course of a year or 5-year strategic vision or something like that. I love that. That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about, as we're looking to be very, very intentional with 2025, again, life or business, whatever you think. I want to talk a little bit about how we can focus on our core values, right? Most people have heard that term, core values. In the military, we hammer that home, like we have our core value. Every service has their core values. Some companies, some larger companies talk about core values or their overall mission and vision. But when we start breaking that down into the individual licensed business owner, right? An individual real estate agent, an individual insurance rep, an individual loan officer, very few really paused, at least in my professional opinion, based on coaching thousands of agents, very few pause to think about what are my core values, right? What are the things that at the end of the day, I have things I will do, I have things I won't do, and I have reasons for that. I know what I'm trying to accomplish, I know how I want to accomplish it, and I know what I will not do, even if it meant that I could maybe make more money or close more deals. There's lines in the sands that I don't cross. How important, Al, I'm going to throw this one at you real quick from the psychology perspective. How important is it in the overall success of a person or their business to establish some hardcore values for themselves?
Um, it's very important because I think you, number one, you just need to know where you stand. And if you're trying to lead, influence, mentor, you have to lead from the front, and people have to know where you stand.
Yeah.
And I think as you go out and you develop relationships, you know, I think when we start something like this, right, you cast this big, like, oh my God, I want to tell everybody I'm in real estate. And at the end of the day, there's so much misalignment because of values, goals, motivation, whatever the case may be, that you're much better served having a smaller niche group of people that you align with, that you're building and growing with. And it's and now, because now it's more pleasurable, right?
Yeah.
Because whenever you're doing business with somebody who, there's just not that chemistry, right? Yeah, you're making money together or whatever the case may be, but it's just off a little bit, right? It's just off. And the reality is the reality is usually you self suffer, you self sacrifice because you want the money,
Yeah.
correct? You want the money. So can you be strong enough to kind of say, no, you know what? I don't really align well with this person. So yeah, they're going to give me leads, but you know what? No, I don't want to work with them because I don't really like the way they do business.
Hmm.
And I'd rather go and seek somebody who's more aligned like me and develop that partnership
Yep.
that way. So I think just knowing, again, it goes back to what I said originally, self-awareness is huge. You just
Yeah.
got to know who you are. You have to.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a question for everybody on the call. Do me a favor, drop this in the chat, right? And be honest, right? Just this is a no judgment zone. You may have thought of this at some point in your mind, but the question is, do you have written down core values for your business? Are they written somewhere? Maybe they're on your goal planning sheet. Maybe maybe you put a business plan together that had mission and vision and core values. Do you actually have written, established core values for your specific business? Yes or no? Just drop that in the chat. Just let me know where you're at. And again, it's a judge-free zone. If you don't, that's okay. We're just here to kind of get a feel for where everybody's at on this. Because I agree, which is why I'm asking the question. So I even something as simple as the way we prospect for new business, right? Ray and I are, for those who know, Ray and I wrote a book a year ago or so. Our goal is to publish our second book in the first quarter of 2025, and it's called Prospecting for Your Personality Type: How to Build and Run Your Business Your Way. It goes exactly back to what Al had just said, where I have to be self-aware enough to know who I am, how I communicate, what makes me tick, how do I want to interact with people. And then from there, you start to establish a set of core values on how you interact with people, how you prospect for business. There are people that absolutely will not do certain types of lead generation because it just does not feel right at their core. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you've never paused to reflect on who you are and what your core values are, you're just not doing something because it feels like it ain't working. You're not necessarily not doing it because it does not align with who you are. And when you learn to align your business with who you are at the core, man, fun things start to happen. It gets easier, it gets more enjoyable. The results start to manifest on their own. So it looks like obviously Andrew said yes, not surprised by that. Don said yes, Tushar said yes. I do not, but I agree with the company's core values. Yes, no, yes, no. Typed on a Google Doc. Okay. Not written down. No, 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 not yet. No. Okay. Not yet. So
Hey, Walt,
that's not super surprising. I figured the majority would say no to that question. It's not something you hear talked about a lot in this industry. Al, what you got there? You said
hey, real quick. So I'm meeting with a restaurant owner that was referred to me on Monday, and the guy's restaurant, it grosses over 2.2 million, right? And I asked him, and this will bring the point home. I asked him, I said, um, does that include liquor sales? And I said, does he have it broken down? When I was asking him about like delivery liquor in person. And he goes, no, I don't serve liquor. I go, you don't serve liquor at all? He goes, no. He goes, it's against my religion.
Oh,
And he
well,
said,
values at their finest.
but if somebody comes in here and buys my restaurant and adds liquor, he said it's game over. It's
Oh, yeah.
game over. But he goes, I won't do it. And it's exactly what he said. He goes, I won't do it because it conflicts with my personal beliefs.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is core. That's a beautiful example of executing core values. Perfect sense. All right. All right. So hopefully you guys took something from that. And if you've never established core values for you and your business, really give that some thought, right? Almost without getting super nerdy on you, because I'm a nerd. I'm a data-driven guy. Without getting super nerdy, almost give yourself a mini personality assessment, right? Give yourself a gut check about how do I want to communicate with people? How do I want to interact with people? What kinds of people do I want to serve in my business? And as you start to refine that, you will start to see some core values surface about the way you will do your business, the way you definitely will not do your business, right? The types of interactions you want to have, the kind of interactions that you won't have. And the beautiful thing about that is when you have an interaction with someone else that they initiate, if you have those core values and their interaction pings your radar, right? It makes you feel like, something's, like Al said, something's off here, right? You don't have to try to figure out what that is. You can trust the fact that your core values are ingrained in you enough that something's off about how they want to do business, and that's not a good partnership for you. Partnerships are fantastic, right? We teach an entire course on how to build partnerships. It's a wonderful thing to do. But building the wrong partnerships and being miserable in order to get business is not the way to go. Building a few great partnerships as opposed to having a bunch of partnerships that drain you, definitely the better way to go as you push for the next year. Okay, so let's shift topics a little bit here. Andrew, I want to talk about, a lot of people use terms like manifestations or visualization, or you'll hear people say things like, I'm going to recite certain mantras, and mentally I'm going to do the thing before I physically go do the thing, right? Let's talk a little bit about visualization and manifestation. How does that work in a business model? Is it even something worth doing? If it's worth doing, how do we start doing it consistently? Give us some thoughts on that. How do we start manifesting our success before we ever even take the action?
Right. I think this goes back to the initial topic where we started of having a goal in mind in the first place, right? So we'll keep it really simple. Let's talk about like number of leads, right? So if you set a goal from what you did in 24 for 25 that you want a certain number of leads, that has to be somewhere, or it's kind of like the concept of like out of sight, out of mind. And you have to be looking at it all the time, in my opinion. Like I have personal goals and I will review them and look at them. And a lot of people like every day, and a lot of people can do this in a lot of different ways. For me, it's like a data point on a dashboard, right? I'm kind of a data and analytics geek. Some people do vision boards. I walk around our office at our real estate brokerage when I do go in, and I see people with a car up on their whiteboard. And I'm like, what is that? They look at it every day and say, what I am doing is for this. And maybe it's not a material thing. Maybe it's a vacation with their family. But for me, the big proponent there is keeping things in your mind so you know what you're shooting for. Because the second you stop tracking, the second you remove that effort towards whatever that end resolve might be, is where you're going to really find yourself in trouble. Kind of like Al's gym thing. Like you're going to go super hard for a couple of weeks and then everyone burns out, and they didn't take many steps here. But if your goal is to get absolutely shredded at the gym, maybe you have that on your vision board of someone with a really good physique and the muscle type that you ultimately want to shoot for. It really helps. And it really helps saying it too. I wake up every morning, I have this, and I literally write, who am I going to get to build my pool? Who am I going to get to build my pool? Because our family really wants a pool to enjoy in our backyard.
Nice.
So I ask myself that, and I write it down 10 times every single morning, amongst other things. But that just ingrains it into my brain as it's not if, it's when. And who am I going to get it? That's the important part to me.
Love it. For those who are trying to get shredded in the gym and they need the perfect physique, message me. I'll send you a photo. I got you covered.
Hey, Walt, can I just go back to our last core value point?
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
wanted to add one one thing that hopefully will help. Or actually, two things. Number one, less is more. On my sales team, when I left in the real estate sales team, we had 11 core values. It's kind of like your goals. If you have 50 goals, it's going to be impossible. Write down 50, circle the top two that are most important for you, and focus on those two. Less is more. In Billions, we spent 2 weeks on this. So we did not take this lightly, but we wrote down, the entire team wrote down all of their core values, and we spent a great deal of time with each and every word. We whittled it down to three. Always win our customers, act like an owner, and simplify complexity. This is for the CRM.
Yeah.
Every decision we make is, we ask ourselves, is the answer yes, yes, and yes to those three core values? We bring it back. You always bring it back. We have these, I have it on my desktop, I have it on my laptop computer, I have it everywhere. And I do not forget about that. I built it into the culture. So if you're by yourself, you can do the same thing. Read your core values every day, maybe write them down every single day. But we make our decisions and our goals based on, does it win our customer? Yes or no? Are we doing this for us or for them? Are we acting like a true real estate owner? Like, is this actually going to help their business? Yes or no? And then are we simplifying a complex problem? If the answer is no, we go back to the drawing board of what we're trying to fix in the first place. And we do not move forward unless it's a yes, yes, and yes. And we do unanimously across the board of the decision makers in that company. Everyone has to agree.
Love it. Love it. I think that's fantastic. I love the idea of less is more. That makes perfect sense. Again, it's so many people can relate to this concept, right? For the real estate people, active prospecting or lead generation. I say that all the time. If you are trying to do too many things at once, you are not doing anything well. You are not doing anything consistently. And I think everyone on this call will agree, especially the guests here will agree. Consistency is where the magic happens. It's not, and that's life, personal goals, business, finance. It's not a how hard and how fast can I go for a minute. It's consistent, disciplined, repetitive actions moving you in the direction that you want to go. As an example, I'm gonna use a Navy example because I'm a 21-year Navy veteran. Anyone who's ever been about boats will understand this. If we drop the throttle on a boat, it only takes a few minutes to get what we call on step, right? We're going as fast as we can go. We're planing on the water. We're cruising. But that's not going to get us very far. If we as soon as we take it off the gas, we go and we sink in the water and everything stops. So it's not about how hard can we push for a day or two or a month or two. It's how do we take consistent, deliberate steps in the right direction, adjust those steps when we need to make sure we're walking down the right road. But that consistency is so wildly important. So don't try to do too many things at once. You will shoot yourself in the foot because you just can't. You cannot do a whole bunch of things better than you can focus in on a few very specific actions that you know matter in the way that you're trying to run your business, right? Some of that will be based on core values. Some of that will be based on the goals you're trying to achieve, and the direction that you're trying to go. I think that's brilliant. I love that.
Well, can I add one other thing around that point, kind of
Yeah.
going back to 2 topics ago on the calendar? Kind of setting up that mentality of like building habits. One super simple life hack that I implemented is I put a 8 p.m. alarm Monday through Sunday, every day of the week, that goes off and says, review the calendar. I personally like to live my life by the calendar. If it's a mini task, I put it on there. If I don't want to be bothered, I mark it as busy. If it's something that I am a little flexible on, I mark it as free. So some people who have my Calendly can book. But what I do every night at 8 is I go through what I did at Wednesday, and then I move them over if I did not, for whatever reason, accomplish them on Wednesday to today. And then I know, and I feel more comfortable that way. I hate the feeling of waking up and being like, the hell am I doing today? Like last night I looked and I was like, I'm going to be on virtual coffee tomorrow at 10. If I hadn't, I probably would have woken up and been like, oh my gosh, I have this meeting I have to do, and I'm going to be talking in front of. I always like to plan, kind of like when you get up on stage, if you're nervous, it's probably because you're a little bit unprepared or you didn't practice your presentation, right? So that's just a little thing, takes 5 minutes to do, and then you feel really good going into the next day. And I do that every single day.
Yeah. So that not only talks about the clarity before the action, right? we're reviewing our calendar so we know specifically what action we are taking the next day. And if something doesn't, let's say for whatever reason, something wound up on your calendar and you review it and you go, that does not align with my core values. I'm going to take it off my calendar. I'm not going to do things that waste my time just because it wound up on my calendar. So feel free to take things off the calendar. That also talks a little bit about the accountability systems, right? I'm a huge fan of calendar management as well. We call it calendar management because Ray and I both agree, right? We wrote a book and there's a section in there, calendar management, right? None of us manage time. That time management buzzword is out there, but genuinely, truly, none of us manage time. We all have 24 hours in a day, period. It's simply a matter of how do we manage the activities that we are doing within the time frame we choose to do them. So it's really calendar management. I'm a huge fan of that as well. I build out the calendar in advance, review it every day. It does build a level of personal accountability. Maybe you're going to meet with let's call them a success partner, not an accountability partner, and you guys are going to talk out how your week went. Well, Monday through Friday, until that meeting happens, you're on your own still. So the calendar actually becomes a personal accountability system that you can leverage to push farther each week before you even have a meeting with somebody else. I think that's a fantastic point. All right, let's talk about one more piece of this because I think it's important. We talked a lot about how to set things in motion, how to create our core values, audit our last year, know what we did and what did not work. How do we make that work now? How do we build some accountability systems, having some clarity of what we want to accomplish before we start taking action to accomplish them? I want to talk about one more thing. Al, let's talk a little bit about flexibility, adjustment, refining, adaptation, whatever you want to call it. The old Semper Gumby motto, right? You have to be flexible enough to realize, and part of that is the audit and the assessment, but how do we bring in a level of flexibility where I don't have to beat myself up if I made a plan and it didn't get executed correctly, or I have something I plan to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Wednesday I just don't, and I hate to say this, but everyone's been there. I just don't feel like it today. I am now I'll be the first to tell you I hate the word motivation. I don't really care if you feel like it. We got to be disciplined enough to run our business, but we all have those days, right? The dog got sick. Had to take someone to the doctors. Something crazy happened. We just truly couldn't plan for it. How do we implement a level of flexibility and adaptation into our overall plan without getting lazy about executing the plan? Where's that balance and how do we start to put that in place?
So number one, the first word that came to mind is quit making excuses.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Quit making excuses, right? And we can go back to the gym. I'm at the gym every morning. And people know they can find me at the gym every morning. Like they know. They're like, you want to run into me? You'll know I'll be there. And then I won't see somebody for a while and I'll be like, hey, I haven't seen you for a minute. And I don't talk to a lot of people, but I'll be like, I haven't seen you for like a week. And then I'm ready for the story.
Yeah. Well, you know what it was.
And it's just nothing but excuses, right?
Yeah.
So to answer the question from that lens is if your desire is strong enough to achieve XYZ goal, quit making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up earlier. Go to bed earlier. I don't know. Whatever your problem is, I don't know what your problem is of why you can't get there, but quit making excuses. Okay.
Yeah.
And that just means that it was kind of it wasn't very intentional that you really wanted to achieve this. It was just that, it
sounds good.
It sounds good, right? Okay. So fix that. Now, if you are grinding and you're going after something and you're not getting the desired result, that's again now saying, okay, I need to pivot. Okay. And we can say on this whole exercise thing, we all know that exercise is one, nutrition is one, right? There's a million ways to exercise. There's a million ways to eat. Well, certain things work better for certain people. That's just proven fact. So if you're going down this path of I'm going to eat clean and I'm just going to pick one, I'm doing the carnivore diet, and you're not getting the results from the carnivore diet, but you're showing the discipline to follow it. Okay, well maybe that's not the right diet for you. Maybe keto is correct for you or something like that. So you have to say, okay, I'm putting in the work, and I'm diligently putting in the work and I'm staying on task, but I'm still not getting that desired result. What's the pivot I need to make? Think about it. The habit's not changing, correct? The
Right.
habit's not changing. You're just adjusting how you're fulfilling it. And so I think it's two things. It's quit making excuses when you're not that serious. And number two is understanding that at the end of the day, greatness comes from pivoting constantly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
no,
just
I
gotta
like that
always
for
pivot,
sure.
pivot, 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 and understand that that's just normal. It's normal.
Yeah. So I 100% agree with that. I think we have to be willing to say, one, this is a me problem. I'm not disciplined enough to do this thing. I use that marathon analogy, right? Um, I tell people this all the time in my business planning course. On my desk right here, to just off camera, there is a first in my age group 2014 Lincoln Memorial Marathon plaque. Right, great marathon. I had a wonderful time. Did really great. But training for that spring marathon required me to set my alarm for 3:45 a.m. 7 days a week in Omaha, Nebraska in the winter. And I had to roll myself out of my cozy warm bed at 3:45, put on my running shoes, and go spend hours in negative 10-degree weather putting in the miles in order to accomplish the goal I set, right? So I'm a big fan of discipline over motivation. I hate the word motivation. Motivation does not exist at 3:45 a.m. in Omaha, Nebraska. Right? It was murdered the night before, right? It's not there. So if it's a matter of you tell yourself, I'm just not feeling it today. I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it today. There should be a little voice in the back of your head that says, so what? Do it anyway. Right. In my previous Navy world, we used to do some fun stuff. We have this catchphrase that we always used to use. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. And there are days where you won't necessarily like what you know you have to do. But if you know you have to do it anyway, because the result that you achieve from doing it anyway, not only will it move your business forward, mentally, it will start to calcify that weakness in your mind. It'll be easier to do it the next time. But the pivot point, let's come back to that. When I used to run an accountability group with some of our agents, one of the questions we always asked each week, because every week we would establish what are my just three, right? We want to be focused. What are the three things that I'm making my priorities this week? And then when we came back the next week, we would talk about, did you accomplish those priorities or not? And we'd walk through that a little bit. And one of the questions that we would ask at the end of that exercise is that still a priority for you, or are you going to replace it with something more important? And I think that's something people don't do enough of. They don't do it as often as they should, because they get this idea in their mind, this is what I want, but maybe they didn't have the clarity. Maybe they weren't at a point where they could really say, yeah, this is absolutely the thing. And they had an idea of what they wanted. And as they start moving in that direction, they realize this actually isn't accomplishing what I thought I wanted to accomplish at all. The faster you realize that and pivot away from it, the better you will be. So I think there's absolutely a mechanism of, don't be afraid to say, even though I've done this, even though I've put months into this, it's not what I want. I'm going to scrap that and pivot and move in the direction I want to move. So the question, maybe from the practical standpoint, I'll throw this one to you, Andrew. Is there something tangible and executable that we can leave them with on an average? Everybody's different, right? Let's just call it a law of averages here. How often should we assess and pivot from our major plans, right? Let's say, let's use 2025 as an example. We sit down, we draft some core values for ourselves, right? If we're new to this, they might not be refined yet, but we establish them. We know what we want to accomplish in 2025, at least conceptually, and we start moving in the direction we think we want to go. And March rolls around, or maybe January 15th rolls around. I don't know. That's really the question, is how fast. We start to feel like we're not moving in the direction we wanted to move. I think there's a balance between putting in the consistent effort to achieve your results and wasting time on efforts that aren't going to get you your results. Do you have some clarity on, generally speaking, what's that time frame look like? Where's the crossover between I haven't put in enough work to know if this is going to accomplish something, and I've put in enough work to know I'm actually not accomplishing what I wanted to? What's that look like, Andrew?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to ask yourself a couple, underlying questions, and this is where the audit part comes in. And to answer your initial question, well, I think daily is makes the most sense. But let's go with like this gym example that we've been talking about. You want to get absolutely ripped, right? That's like the end reason why. That's your why. I want to be in really good shape for my kids so I can be around forever for them, right? But you back that out and say, okay, well, how is that obtainable? Well, I want to go to the gym twice a week. And you audit, say, am I putting in the effort to get the resolution of getting in shape? Because if I only go to the gym once this week, skip a week, twice the next week, and then I'm not getting
no
my body where I want, then there's a problem there. And also the expectation going into a project like that, I'll call it a project, is not going to go to the gym for 2 weeks and be ripped after 2 weeks, right? It's a long-term thing that you get to a certain point and then you're in like kind of like maintenance mode. So a lot of it depends on physically, it's impossible unless, you use other methods, I'll say, to get in really good shape by skipping, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I would guess that when you were training for your marathon, day one of your training, you weren't running in negative 10-degree weather for 3 hours. Probably started with 30 minutes and then 45. And then, or by miles, you did 1 mile the first week. Then the second you did 3, then 4, and you kind of built up on top of each other. I think you have to kind of zoom out and say, okay, what is actually obtainable and how fast? And then you make those decisions based on that, right? But I think, and this is a question of like personal preference, right? If you give up that easily, that says different things or can say different things. But if it's me personally versus me and my business, I think you have to kind of put two different lenses on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I'll just leave, I'll stop talking. I just wanted to leave one last tidbit, kind of come full circle here. This is all about habit building and kind of repetition and getting into a routine. Walt, since you're in the Navy, you might know this person, but there's an Admiral William McRaven. He wrote a book called Make Your Bed.
Yeah.
That teaches you doing a simple task in the morning every day, which I do myself, and I make my kids all do it. Make your bed, because you're accomplishing that one first task instead of just kind of mulling around, getting coffee, like you're doing something. And then at the end of the day, his philosophy is, if you didn't do anything else, at least you have a made bed to come back to.
Yeah. You build those minor habits that lead into big wins. Yeah, absolutely. So let's leave it with this. We got 5 more minutes and we'll open up a quick question. Sorry, that was a great conversation. I'm sorry we don't have a ton of room for questions. I would say, based on what we're hearing there, is for whichever specific action you're trying to accomplish, identify a milestone, a mile marker. This should logically take me 1 month, 3 months, 6 months to accomplish. Have a framework in your head of what you truly believe it should take. And then don't cheat yourself and quit early, but be willing to assess, is this milestone coming together like I wanted it to? And do I even want to continue to do it? Maybe the milestones and the metrics we place inside of our yearly business plan allow us to pivot faster, but also pivot in the right direction. We don't cheat ourselves by quitting. We maximize our potential by pivoting at the right time. I think we'll leave it there. We got a couple minutes. Anybody got any questions, comments for Andrew or Al before we wrap up the call? I apologize, we only have 4 more minutes. This was a great conversation in my mind. Hopefully this was valuable to everybody else as well. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Walt, sir, I just wanted to ask, like, can I have a recording of this meeting, because it was very valuable? And
Absolutely. Yeah, so we will post this on the YouTube channel. So where all of our coffee meetings get posted on the YouTube channel, we'll absolutely make sure everybody gets that, and then we'll get it into the newsletter as a replay as well. Absolutely, for sure.
Thank you.
Couple little housekeeping things before we wrap up the call. I want to make sure we wrap on time to respect everybody's day. If you didn't already drop your info in the chat, please do drop it in the chat. Let people connect with you. I love Jackie's challenge, right? Go through the chat log at some point, maybe later today, and identify one person that you're like, you know what? maybe they're in my state, they're in my general market, they have a service that I've been looking for someone to partner with anyway. Connect with somebody the rest of this week that you can engage with and have a great conversation with. If you don't know how to download the chat, if you just on the bottom where there's a little button that says chat, if you hit that, it'll show you the chat window if it's not already up. And then where it says virtual coffee, and then to the right, there's 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots and hit the little button that says save chat. And what that's going to do is it's going to save a notepad document directly to your computer. And then there'll be a little button that comes up at the bottom that says chat saved, show in folder. If you click show in folder, it'll literally open the exact folder where they put it. So you'll know where to find it. And everything that went into the chat today, everybody's contact info, any questions, comments, feedback that went into the chat, you will have that as a running log. Use that to grow your business and connect with other people. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns before we wrap up? We have 2 minutes to go, so we can give you 2 minutes of your day back, or we can answer any one question that we might have. Going once, going twice. All right, that's a wrap. Andrew, Al, I really appreciate it. You guys had a ton of value to bring today. Hopefully this was valuable to everybody else that was on the call as well. If you have specific questions for either one of them and you're like, I don't want to ask this publicly, but I do have something in mind, their information is in the chat as well. So grab their information, give them a call. Everybody have a fantastic day. Have a great week. Go out there and crush your 2025. You guys take it easy.